Ancient India. More than 2,200 years ago, one man ruled over a growing empire that stretched across vast lands, powerful cities, and millions of people. His name was Ashoka. History would eventually remember him as one of the greatest rulers who ever lived. But that is not how his story began. Before he became a symbol of peace, Ashoka was known for something very different: power, conquest, war. Born into the mighty Maurya Empire, Ashoka grew up surrounded by politics, ambition, and fierce competition. The empire itself had already become one of the largest and most powerful kingdoms in the ancient world. But power was never guaranteed. Royal families often fought among themselves for the throne, and Ashoka was not originally considered the most likely successor. To many people, he was simply one prince among many. Yet Ashoka possessed qualities that made him stand out. He was intelligent, determined, and willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. As a young man, he proved himself capable in both administration and warfare. He was sent to govern distant regions of the empire and gained a reputation for being effective, but also ruthless when necessary. Over time, his influence grew. Eventually, after a period of political struggle following his father's death, Ashoka secured the throne. Now he was emperor, and with that power came a vision. Ashoka wanted to expand the Maurya Empire even further. At the time, most of the Indian subcontinent had already fallen under Mauryan control, but one independent kingdom remained outside his grasp, a wealthy and strategic region known as Kalinga. Located along the eastern coast of India, Kalinga controlled important trade routes and enjoyed its independence. To Ashoka, it represented unfinished business. He decided it would become part of his empire. And so preparations for war began. Thousands of soldiers gathered. Weapons were forged. Commanders organized their armies. The stage was set for one of the most significant conflicts in ancient Indian history, the Kalinga War. When the fighting began, it was brutal. Ancient warfare was unforgiving. Battles were fought face to face. Swords clashed. Arrows filled the sky. War elephants charged across battlefields. The struggle lasted until Ashoka's forces finally emerged victorious. Kalinga had been defeated. The emperor had achieved his objective. On paper, it was a tremendous success. Another territory had been conquered. The empire had grown larger. His power had increased. But then something happened that no one expected. After the war, Ashoka surveyed the battlefield. What he witnessed would change his life forever. Everywhere he looked, there was suffering. The dead, the wounded, families mourning loved ones, villages destroyed, lives shattered. Ancient records suggest that more than 100,000 people may have died as a result of the conflict, while many more suffered displacement and hardship. For the first time, the cost of conquest became impossible to ignore. Victory no longer felt glorious. It felt tragic. Standing amid the aftermath of war, Ashoka experienced a profound transformation. He began asking questions few conquerors ever asked. What was the purpose of power if it created so much suffering? What was the value of victory if countless lives were destroyed in the process? Was there another way to rule? The answers led him down a completely different path. Instead of pursuing more military campaigns, Ashoka gradually embraced principles centered on compassion, nonviolence, and moral leadership. He became deeply influenced by Buddhist teachings, which emphasize kindness, self-control, and respect for all living beings. What followed was one of the most extraordinary transformations in political history. Ashoka did something almost unheard of. He chose peace. Rather than expanding his empire through warfare, he focused on improving the lives of the people already living within it. Roads were built, wells were dug, trees were planted along travel routes to provide shade, hospitals and medical facilities were established. Efforts were made to care not only for humans, but for animals as well. Religious tolerance became an important principle of governance. People of different beliefs were encouraged to live peacefully alongside one another. Ashoka wanted his empire to be guided by ethical conduct rather than fear. To spread these ideas, he ordered messages to be carved into massive stone pillars and rock surfaces throughout the empire. These inscriptions became known as the Edicts of Ashoka. Written in languages ordinary people could understand, they encouraged honesty, compassion, respect, and responsibility. Some of those inscriptions still survive today. More than 2,000 years later, they continue to tell the story of an emperor who changed course. As the years passed, Ashoka's reputation evolved. He was no longer remembered simply as a conqueror. He became known as a ruler who placed the welfare of his people above endless expansion. His influence extended beyond the borders of his empire. Buddhist teachings spread across Asia through missionaries and cultural exchanges supported during his reign. The impact of those efforts can still be seen today in countries across the continent. Yet perhaps the most remarkable part of Ashoka's story is not what he built. It is what he chose to abandon. History is filled with rulers who sought more territory, more wealth, more power. Ashoka achieved those things, then walked away from the path that had brought them. He realized that conquering land was easier than conquering one's own ambitions, that ruling through fear was easier than ruling through wisdom, and that true greatness might not come from defeating enemies, but from improving the lives of others. More than 2 millennia later, the story of Ashoka continues to inspire people around the world, not because he won battles, but because after winning them, he found the courage to change. The emperor who once expanded an empire through war became the ruler remembered for choosing peace, and that choice transformed history forever.